Hey guys, Sean here with FYREBX, and we thought it was time that we talked about the compact track loader and the FYREBX all in the same video. This is gonna be a long video, and we're actually not even gonna edit this video. I'm just gonna talk like you're standing here, and we're gonna go through this thing from top to bottom and discuss safety, maintenance, and how to use your FYREBX. All right, so let's get started. So maintenance is one of the key things to safety in operating your CTL, your compact track loader. First of all, I want to highly suggest that you read all your owner's manuals of your CTL, contact your dealer and find out how do you operate your machine, how do you do all the little buttons and all the little things in there. Ask your dealer to show you how to really use your machine. So let's discuss maintenance. First of all, make sure that all your fluids are where they're supposed to be. It's critical that you have good level of hydraulic fluid, oil, DEF. If you're above 75 horsepower, you're probably going to have DEF. So make sure your DEF is full. Make sure your fuel is full. And here's another feature as far as safety wise with refilling your fuel. If you're refilling your fuel, and let's say you drip a bunch of fuel down the belly pan under the engine there, clean it up. You don't want to go on a fire or any sort of emergency and have any debris that's flammable around your machine. That brings me to the next maintenance issue that's a safety issue, is to ensure that your hydraulics, none of your hydraulics, inspect all your hydraulics and make sure you have no leaks. This is a big deal. And this story is probably one of the worst things I've ever heard related to a compact track loader. We heard of a gentleman that was mowing with a high flow machine. I won't say what brand it was, but he had a leaking hydraulic lines on his hoses, and unfortunately he started a fire. He tried to use the mower to put out the fire. The leaking hydraulics that were hot caught fire, and unfortunately this person panicked and he burned to death inside of his machine. So we're talking about, this is very serious. The reason it's really important for me is that everybody that's using the FYREBX, whether you're using it in construction, you're using it in the mining industry, and especially using it in the fire industry, safety is the number one thing that we want to stress with FYREBX. So the maintenance of your machine, no leaks, no hydraulic leaks, no fuel leaks, no oil leaks. Another thing to do is make sure you always grease your machine. There are multiple grease points on your machine. And I know it's a pain, but we recommend, I personally, if I'm out on a fire, and I've been on fires, quite a few fires with this unit and with the FYREBX, you know, every 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours, depending on my wear, how active I am, I'll go ahead and grease my machine completely, maybe 2 times a day. Another feature is your track tension. You know, with this machine, you pop this out, you put in your grease gun, and you pump it, and it tightens it. So I make sure that when I go out every day, I'm checking the tension of my tracks, and that's another safety feature there. So let's talk about safety features on the inside of your machine. So one thing is, a lot of people don't know what are the evacuation points of a machine. If you are an emergency and you get stuck inside here, is there a way to get out of this machine? And with all track loaders, there is a way to exit your machine. It's basically in here there's a tab. You pull the tab, it pulls the seal around the window, and you can actually get out that window. That brings up another feature, another situation here. If you're a big guy, you're going on a fire and you cannot get out that evacuation window, you have no business being on a fire. So make sure as an employer, if you're putting employees or whoever is operating this machine and they're in a fire situation, they have to be able to get out of the evacuation emergency exit in any machine, any branded machine, and train them of how to get out of their machine. That muscle memory, that training is real critical to the safety of operating these machines. Another thing with these machines is a lot of them have quick connect, these little levers on the hinges to where you can, even if this arm is up and the door can't open, you can swing these levers and pop this glass off. So truly, it's important that you study and understand what are the safety exits for any brand of machine that you're using. There again, check with your dealer and read your instructions on your manuals on your machines. Another thing is when you are operating any implement, whether it's a firebox, a dozer blade, could be a mower, make sure that you always lower your boom down. Put it in the down position. Now here's something I do when I'm running a machine and I know I'm going to stop. I don't immediately turn off my machine. I lower this, I open my door, then I turn down my RPMs and I turn off my machine. I know that no matter what, this is down and my door is open before I turn that machine off. Now, why is that important? Well, let's say you're in an emergency situation and you're panicking and you think this is on fire or something's going on, an emergency, and first thing you do is turn off your machine. Well, you're stuck. Your machine really won't move. You're gonna have a hard time getting out of this thing. Now, there is another safety feature that all compact track loaders have, and that is a tab. And there again, go to your instruction manual, talk to your dealer. There's a tab that you pull if the machine stops and the booms are in the up position. You pull that tab, it releases the hydraulics, and the boom will lower all the way down if it has the ability to. I have had situations, for example, when I was doing some masticating around a boggy area and I actually got stuck, and my boom got stuck higher up and I couldn't open the door. I turned off the machine and I tried to release it, but my boom couldn't go down because it was stuck in the mud. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that what I'm talking about. So I had to pull the glass and I had to climb out the back. So that's the safety and the maintenance features of your machine. Now, another thing I want to talk about in your machine, especially if you're going on fires, is the items that you're going to be required to have on your machine. So these are fire curtains. FYREBX offers fire curtains for your compact track loader. You're also, if you go on a fire, you're going to be required to have a fire extinguisher inside your cab, as well as a shovel and a Pulaski. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the FYREBX. One other thing. So I had a dealer, he was down in Texas and he was selling the FYREBX, and they had a bunch of fires down there and they asked him to come to a fire. And I said, hey, you better have all your PPE gear. He said, oh, this is Texas, they don't worry about that. Well, he went to the fire and first thing they asked is, A, where's your fire card? And B, where is your PPE gear? He didn't have it. So here we have just a sample of the things you're required to have when you go on a fire. Whether it's with a Forest Service, CAL FIRE, you're going to have you got to have a radio, okay? You got to have your fire shelter. You've got to have your Nomex shirts and pants, your helmet with your goggles and lights, and U.S. Forest Service, CAL FIRE approved boots. Your gloves, you have to have U.S. Forest Service and CAL FIRE approved gloves when you go in here. You have to have all this equipment to have inside of your machine at all times. So if you're going to show up at a fire, you need to have all your PPE equipment. You need to have your fire curtains installed, your fire extinguisher, your shovel, and so forth. Another thing, I've been on a lot of fires recently, and this area is perfect for throwing an ice chest in. It's been critical. On one fire, I think we did like 20 hours straight. And so I had a little ice chest in here, strapped it down. I had my water, food, and I was able just to eat while I was doing my thing. So it really worked out well. All right, so we're gonna now finally get to the FYREBX. So come on over here with the video. The FYREBX attaches to the quick attach plate, which is on the inside here. And I really want to discuss this. We've had two situations where customers did not have their mounting plate of their compact track loader hooked up to their quick attach plate on the firebox. Now this is critical. Now, I have done this before. I owned a company, we had masticators, and it was very easy to put on a masticator, think you had it mounted on there properly, and I'd drive off, do my thing, and it would pop off because I didn't take the time to make sure it was locked. So this is back to that muscle memory, that training. Make sure when I'm going out, I hook up my firebox, I raise it up in the air, and I look and see that both pins are in the locked position. I never go anywhere with my firebox unless I verify that it is, I know for a fact that it is locked on. Another feature is I don't recommend going on fires if you don't have an automatic locking device for your quick attach plate. A lot of your skid steers and compact track loaders have hand levers. That would be fine for a construction scenario, mining, those types of things. But if you're going on a fire, you need to have the quick attach automatic. The reason for that is if you ever get in a situation, and let's say a limb gets hung up, something, and you get stuck and you have to separate from this box here, you can simply hit your quick attach disconnect. It'll disconnect for you. And if it's an emergency, you don't even have to disconnect these. Your hydraulics are turned off. Pull away from this thing and go. Get away from it if you're in a real emergency. But it is very important. Always make sure that your locks are fully locked on your mounting plate. Okay, now we're going to discuss the design of Firebox. So I've had a lot of people tell me that thing looks really cool. And I have to admit it is a pretty cool design, but it has a purpose. It's not designed this way just to be pretty. What's critical about the Firebox, what's part of the patent as well, is that a third of the weight is behind the mounting plate. You notice the tank goes over the tracks. So this whole thing, all the way through, is one tank. It's not separated. And it does have baffles on the inside. The water doesn't slosh back and forth. So the purpose of this weight being mounted behind the mounting plate is it makes it very stable. I would rather take a firebox full of water on steep terrain than go on, take a bucket, an empty bucket. The firebox is much more stable. So let's start with the features of the firebox. So every firebox is operated by standard flow. It does not take high flow. And right here, you're going to see we have here the hoses that go to your flow control, and those hoses go to your compact track loader. Now this goes back to you knowing the machine that you're operating. All these CTLs have a different way of turning on, activating their standard flow or their high flow. Now, you do not want to use high flow on this, only standard flow. I recently had a dealer that went to a demo, and the customer had a brand new Takeuchi TL12, and great machines. And the problem was the new owner didn't know how to operate, how to turn things on and off. And the machine was set up to run high flow, not auxiliary or the standard auxiliary flow. So they went to do the demo and they hooked it up, and the firebox just kind of peed out. It barely did anything. And so the potential customer there that's going to buy a box, he's like, okay, this thing's garbage. It doesn't work very well. Well, the truth was the salesman and the owner did not know how to operate their machine. And unfortunately, this reflected on the firebox. Now, I have thousands of hours operating these machines. I'm such a geek, I'll watch YouTube videos on how all these machines operate. So do your homework. You have to understand, if you're going to sell, this is for salesmen and dealers out there, if you're going to sell a firebox, you need to know this as well as you know this. And that's very, very important. When I'm out meeting potential customers, doing demos, there's a sense of trust there because I know quite a bit about these. And of course I know about this, but the fact that I know the two of them together, there's a confidence there, and the person you're selling to or talking to is definitely going to see that. So do your homework on these machines. So this is your lines that go into your quick attach hydraulic fittings. Here is your flow control. Now, if you notice, the flow control, the lever to change the flow is pointed in. The reason we did that is we didn't want to have the lever on the outside, that if somebody threw something in here, like a shovel handle, a McLeod, a chainsaw, they didn't hit that lever. So it's on purpose that we turn the lever around here. Now that flow control goes from 0 to 10. And right now we have it set on between 7 and 8. That's the real optimum flow. You can go all the way up to 10, but we really recommend between 7 and 8. Works very well. Now, another feature of this manifold is the new three-way valves that we added. And the three-way valves are added so that you can add tools to your firebox. This tool happens to be called the hider pump. The hider pump right here is tied in. It's tied into your three-way valves. And if you're on a, let's say you're on a fire, they have things called snap tanks, fold-a tanks, soft tanks. They're just areas that have water that's set up at different locations, and those things are filled up by fire trucks, they're filled up by water trucks, they're even filled up remotely by helicopter from a Bambi bucket. But they give you a water source when you're out on a fire, and so you can actually, if you don't have a water truck nearby or a fire truck nearby, you can roll up to one of those snap tanks and you can throw, or a stream, swimming pool, any body of water. You can take your hider pump, pull it off the holder there, throw your pump in the water source. We provide you with a 2-inch line that hooks up to cam locks to there. Hook your line into here or dump it into here. You take these levers, they're here on your three-way valve, and you turn the levers down. When the levers are in the down position, that means you're sending all the hydraulic fluid to your hider pump. You throw it in the water source, fill your firebox up quickly, typically between 70, 80 seconds. When you're done, now I've made this mistake myself being on a fire. I throw everything back in here, put my hider pump away, I get in the machine and I go to operate and I have no hydraulics. That's because I forgot to change my three-way valves. So you have to put your three-way valves back in their vertical position so that you now are sending the oil, the hydraulic fluid, back to your hydraulic pump that's located underneath this plate right here. Now the pump, you simply loosen these bolts. The pump sits right here. It has a bracket that holds it. Everything, all the plumbing that comes to it is a quick attach, or I'm sorry, is a cam lock. And it's easy to pull that pump out. We do not use any fancy gaskets or sealants, just a simple silicone here, and you can put it back and you're back in business. Now, these pumps, they're amazing. They are robust. They have a stainless steel impeller, hydraulic main, hydraulic motor, I'm sorry, aluminum hydraulic block there. And then what's cool about that is you never lose prime with this pump. You can be in any kind of terrain, and if the water is low and it sloshes to one side of your tank, you know, if you're using a standard centrifugal pump, you lose prime, you're in trouble. You got to go through this whole rigmarole to get your pump to reprime. We didn't want that issue with FYREBX, so you do not have to prime this. The pump sets down in there as long as you have water in there. I mean, you could even run this pump for 24 hours dry. You're not going to hurt it. So no seals to hurt or anything like that. All right. Another feature on the FYREBX is this tool tray area. The T5, the 500-gallon unit, does not have that, so we offer a toolbox that can be mounted to it. But the T3, with this tool area right here, you've got areas where you can tie downs. So if you want to throw an ice chest in here, you want to throw tools in here, you want to throw fire hoses. You want to throw, I mean, just anything you can think of, chainsaws. You've got these tie downs here where you can ratchet stuff down so it's not bouncing around. In a fire scenario, you may not want the lid. You can even take the lid off and have open access to this at all times. Another feature in this area is the lift points. These lift points here, they were requested by a major utility company in California. They wanted to be able to lift the firebox with a helicopter, take it to a remote location, have a backup 4-stroke engine that could operate this, and in that way they would have optimum, they'd have 300 gallons ready to go where other equipment can't get to. So that's why we have these lift points. Another thing is our tool pockets right here. These are basically 2-inch hitch receivers. We currently have a brush guard that slides into these hitch receivers, kind of protects the front of it. But they're also going to do some other, we have some new products coming online. There'll be some vices that you can tie into here, and you have a vise so you have an area to work, put your tools in here. There's other things that we're going to be creating that are coming along, that are going to be coming soon, that utilize these tool areas right here. We actually have one customer, he made his own little flamethrower. He took a UTV style flamethrower and built him a little rack that slid in, goes right here, and it shoots fire out to the side. So when he's doing prescribed burns down in Florida, it's all mounted on the firebox. So this gives you the ability to do lots of cool things you can add to the firebox. Okay, so now you know what? This just reminded me of something I forgot to talk about. Always know where your hydraulic hoses are. So on every brand of machine, there's these hooks, and these hooks hold your hydraulic lines. And do not operate your CTL with your firebox without having your hydraulic lines retained in these metal retainers here for your hydraulic hoses. The reason is if you're going to go out on a fire, I mean, gosh, even if you're on a construction site, because you can get hot hydraulic fluid in someone's eyes, but even worse, you could be spraying hot hydraulic fluid in a fire situation. If you're not watching these lines and something happens and it gets pinched in here, and you could spray hot hydraulic fluid all over the place, and it'd be really dangerous. So when I'm operating the firebox, doesn't matter how many hours I have on this thing, I am constantly, when I'm fighting fire, if I'm doing dust control, it doesn't matter, hydroseeding, while I'm looking at what I'm doing with the firebox, I am always looking at my hoses, making sure my hoses are safe. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the 4 different ports. So the 2 1.5-inch lines in the front, these are the 2 lines that actually have water. They're tied into the pump, and so they spray. You can spray both of them at the same time. You can spray one or the other. You can also turn. This works great. Like if you're, say they cut a dozer line, and how about a mobile attack? If you're doing a mobile attack, you go in the black and you're running right along the edge of that fire in the grass along the black there. You turn this sideways and it works amazing, laying a water line right there and putting out the fire on a mobile attack. You can also hook fire hoses. So with your different nozzles, all these nozzles fit on the front here. They're all interchangeable. And I can take off this nozzle, that nozzle, any one of these nozzles, and I can hook a fire hose right to this. An 1.5-inch fire hose or a 3/4 inch, like a mop-up hose. We have the adapter here for the 3/4 inch. Now the nozzles that come with the firebox, you're going to have your smoothbore nozzle from 1.5 down to 1/2 inch. You're going to have an 1.5 fan to a jet stream, and I believe this one's close to about 30 gallons per minute. This one right here is about 8 gallons per minute, and it does a fan spray to a straight stream spray as well. Now you might wonder, what is this for? So this is actually for your hose reel. So here we have the firebox hose reel. You got 100 feet of fire hose tied in, and it's actually mounted. You see here, it's mounted to your lid. So you could, if you want to remove this, the great thing about it is disconnect from that port, remove 4 nuts. You can take this off, and now this is open. Leave your mounting nuts in place. And you want to put it back on, throw it back on, throw your 4 bolts on there. So maybe you've been out doing things with this side. So what you do is you basically take this line, remove this from here, hook it up. Now I have water going to my 1-inch hose. Now this is the hose reel comes with a 100-foot 1-inch hose with a 1-inch fan to straight stream nozzle, and you activate this from inside the machine just like you do your 2 front nozzles. And these 2 areas back here, they do a couple of things. One is they're just a convenient way for you to store the different nozzles. You can move stuff back and forth, that way you're not losing stuff. Another thing is your hydro pump. Your hydro pump will screw right onto, take this off, take your nozzle off, screw up to the 1.5 NST or cam lock onto here, onto your male cam lock, and you can hook your hydro pump into that. You don't want to hook your hydro pump to your 2 front because that would be force of water back through your pump, which isn't good for it. So you want to do your filling with your hydro pump to your 2 rear lines. And that brings us to the next feature, which if you see here, Fire Hydro Seed Dust Control. So we have a new feature on all the FYREBX and Landbox products. We used to have a big valve system that hooked up here, and it works very well. We've got quite a few of them out there, but we've kind of simplified it. You see inside here, there's a 3-way valve. It's right here. And that valve, there's one on each side of the front nozzles. And that valve, you can turn off the water to here and send the water back into your tank. The reason we did that is that's how you do hydro seeding and hydro mulching. So basically, you fill this with water. You make sure that your 2 ports that go to these nozzles are closed on the inside. You turn on your hydraulics from inside your machine, and that'll start pumping water, and it'll rotate. The water is just basically turning over, and it's going to turn over. It's 250 gallons a minute, so you're constantly turning over 250 gallons at a time per minute. You slowly pour in your pellet form hydro mulch, hydro seed. You cannot use the bales of hydro seed. The fibers are just way too long. This new technology, it's really a neat thing. This new pellets, we use a product called Edge, but you can use any brand of pellet. You pour the pellets in, allow everything to mix. Now, that brings up another point: is what other types of things can you mix in your firebox? Well, you've got water. You can mix foam. You can mix fire retardant like Phosgene and other products that are out there. You can mix weed killer, herbicides, pesticides. You can say you want to add a dye to your weed control. You can add your dye to it and mix it. So you can mix everything with this simple 3-way valve that's on each side. Now, you want to make sure that with your mixing valves, just disconnect the line here. You want to make sure that when you're ready to go to work, after you get done mixing everything, make sure you turn off the mixing part, and you put the flow back to your front nozzles. You do not, this brings out actually a good point. I always make sure that when I'm ready to go out, say if I'm going on a fire or something like that, I always test my front nozzles. I just give them a quick squirt, and I know everything's working properly. I don't want to go into the black and I got to go into some area where I got to deal with a fire situation, and suddenly I remember, oh crap, I forgot to open my valves and close the mixing part. So always make sure that you have your 3-way valve in the right position. So you're going to want to mix, as I said before, this is an open tank all the way through. A lot of people think these are separate tanks the way it's designed, but it's not. It's actually one tank all the way through. When you're adding your products like FYREBX, when you're adding Hydroseed, Hydromulch, those types of things, I always add a little bit to each side as I'm going while it's mixing. And that just makes sure everything gets mixed up faster. And we typically, with the pellet form, you're looking at around 150 pound bag per about 100 gallons of water in the FYREBX. And then the ratios, the water ratios for your FYREBX, you'll have to get with the manufacturer on that, and other retardants that are out there. So it's just a simple plastic lid. Don't fight it. I fight it all the time. Throw it on there and you're ready to go. So the way this is set up right now, you know that from inside that machine, I can operate either the hose reel, or I can operate the front nozzle. I can even operate both of them at the same time. So I could have a guy pull this hose out 100 feet. He could be handling stuff over here while I'm spraying stuff kind of along over here, as long as we're tethered and we know, where everybody is concerning this hose. So another feature on the FYREBX is the anti-slip. Forgive me for drinking water here. My mouth gets dry and I can't even talk, so it's got to keep hydrating here. But we spend a lot of times on these traction devices here. It's very important. You guys are going to have muddy feet, snowy, icy boots. So we always say 3 points of contact. 1, 2, and my foot on here. Go up, lift, step on these very aggressive traction devices that we have here. They work amazing. I wouldn't recommend sitting on them or putting a knee on them. They're going to hurt. But you open your door, come up here, step in here, step like this, and I'm right in. There again, keeping that 3 points of contact at all times, stepping off. So yeah, those things are awesome. All right, let's talk about another feature here. That's the dozer. And the dozer hooks to our pallet fork pockets. So you can move the FYREBX with a forklift. You can come in from the back and there's a set of fork pockets there for you. But those fork pockets also serve as the holder for your dozer blade. And the dozer blade, it's amazing. You can push a lot of material. I've cut a lot of line with it, push trees and debris out of the way. You can push vehicles off the road. It really is strong. In fact, we had it tested and the engineer came back with a report. He basically said that we wanted to take it to a point of failure. And so first of all, we said, okay, if we had a slope at 45 degrees and the machine was moving at 8.8 miles per hour and it has a pushing force of 11,500 pounds, which is the greatest pushing force of the current track loaders that are out there today. They'll actually break traction. They'll lose traction if they get more than 11,500 pounds. And if you catch the 1-inch corner, say on a stump or a rock, you're going to have a little deflection, about a 1/4 inch deflection, but it's going to go right back. So there currently is not a compact track loader that is under, say, 120 horsepower. That there are bigger machines out there that are coming on board, but they have more power, so yeah, they have greater pushing force. But with these, the smaller compact track loaders, there's not one out there that can actually cause the dozer to fail. Now, another feature on the dozer is you got a tie down here so that you can throw your chain in there and you can tie it down to your trailer when you're transporting it. So we'll move over here to the FYREBX. Put the lid back on. We'll see down here, there's 2 plugs. There's actually 3 plugs on the back here. There's 2 on this side and 1 on that side of the wing. And that 3-inch plug is on both sides. And you simply open that 3-inch plug, lift up your firebox, and you can drain it for winterizing. That clears out all the water in your firebox. But this feature right here is in a magnesium anode. It's about this long. It's sacrificial for cathodic protection. It's going to help the metal from corroding. It's actually going to corrode the magnesium rod so that it doesn't corrode the metal. And we do recommend that you change that once a year, every 2 years. You know, they're like $6 on Amazon. They're really easy to get. You can get them from us also, and we'll just ship one out to you. But they're really easy to change out. Let's see, what else do we have on the firebox? So, we've discussed maintenance and safety with your machine. We've discussed a lot of the features with your firebox. We do have new things coming out. It seems like every week we have a new product coming online, and we're going to be adding them to the story of how to use them with the firebox. I think one of the greatest things for me being the designer, the inventor of the product, is seeing how other people mock up and do their own thing with it. It's really cool to see them customize it and do what they want to do with it. So let's go back and review. Safety. Maintenance is safety on your machine. Safety, knowing where all your hoses are at all time, your hydraulic hoses. Knowing you have the right person operating your machine, the evacuation points, and then knowing all the functions of your firebox. So thank you for, first of all, let me say thank you so much for your interest in Firebox. Thank you for your following Firebox. And for those of you that, it's been amazing. I mean, we've been selling these things as fast as we can make them. We're really excited. And so thank you to everybody. And we'll be back at you next time.